All right. Yeah, I don't use it enough. I'm back in the kind of the back in the office now. So looks like we've got about 22, 23 people. I see Freddie Yazzie trying to join, so hopefully he'll get connected here in just a minute. Can everybody see see the agenda on my screen? Yes. Okay. So we do have a few new people that are attending this meeting. So this is our third one. And just want to give everybody kind of an opportunity to introduce themselves if they want, where their district's from. Obviously, welcome to those of you that are here. The purpose of this is just to kind of get everybody collectively sharing thoughts about how they're starting back up and just helping each other out. So we're just trying to kind of have an avenue to be able to do that. So try and keep your mics muted for the most part, unless you need to, unless you want to talk. Use the comment box if you know how. You can type questions in there. We can come circle back around, or you can have side conversations. And then, we'll just kind of jump into it. So for the new attendees, I know that we had a few people add some stuff to the survey response, and I didn't bring that up here, but I've got some questions that we'll get to. But for those that are new, I think I saw Brian Henderson in here. I saw, there's Brian. Diane Silva is in here. I don't think you've been into one of these yet. I'm not sure who Doyle is. I don't know if I've ever met you, sir.
Yeah, my name's Doyle. I'm with Balt School District.
Oh, okay, perfect. So welcome. And I see Jonna's in here. And James West from Tolleson. Freddie's in here. And Jay Wiley from Litchfield, and Brendan Wagner's also in here. So some new people. I don't know if those of you, we take a few minutes for those that are new, if you guys want to share kind of some of the stuff that your districts are working on to everybody else that's in here, and then we can get into kind of some of the questions that have come through some of the survey responses. So maybe James, do you want to talk a little bit about, we'll start out with you and talk a little bit about what Tolleson's kind of plans are at the moment and how you guys are working to plan for transportation?
Sure. Thank you, Jason. Currently, out of the most, we've had a series of principal meetings from our 6 high school campuses, and everything obviously is absolutely changeable at the last minute. So the information that I'm getting is, I'm being told that it's the information we have right now. It could change. So just, be understanding of that. But currently what they're sharing with us is that we are not going to be practicing social distancing on our buses. They're giving our students 3 platforms and choices of how they want to attend school this next year. One is 100% online. The other one is a kind of a virtual reality thing where they're streaming the teacher in the classroom. The student can do that. The other one is of course, the on-campus option. So the parents and the students have until June 26th to get back to the district on which option they choose. Currently, the district's telling me that they're anticipating about half of our 12,500 students to take the option of possibly coming on campus. So that in and of itself hopefully will cause some social distancing on the campus. Plus, on our buses, we're looking at maybe 2,000 possibly of those 6,000 or so students to be bus riders. Hopefully it's not more like 80 or 90% of those 6,000 that's bus riders, because then we'll be really in a pickle. But that's kind of what they've shared up to this point. And again, they've told me nothing is solid and set in stone. We will have, which I thought was really a creative idea. Our district decided to take those backpacks that you put on, the backpack sprayers, canisters, and they're going to have 3 at each one of the high school campuses. So when the buses pull in, they offload the last student. Somebody from the campus and the school is going to get on the bus and spray the bus down. So nice. That's kind of exciting. So that takes a lot of the pressure off my drivers having to do that, if that's the direction that we end up going. So That's pretty much some of the key points. I know all of our staff are going to have to wear masks. I'm trying to push for our drivers to be able to wear shields because I think the masks may get cumbersome where we may have a driver pass out possibly because of how it gets so hot here in Arizona on the bus with a mask on. So I'm hoping that they'll approve maybe the whole shield thing to be the way to go. We'll see how that goes, but that's really kind of an update from us.
Cool, thank you. Brian, you want to go next? Brian.
Oh, there it goes. I wouldn't unmute. Yeah, but it sounds like a lot of the same stuff. We're in task force meetings right now to review every aspect from campus to transportation and what procedures we're going to have in place. Our campuses are going to a block schedule this year, a three-tier block. So they don't have students changing classes. Everybody will be in one classroom to reduce the exposure. As far as transportation, we too are planning on sanitizing after every load of passengers. We don't know how that looks yet, if the driver is going to sanitize or if they're going to keep equipment on the campuses and have somebody come on. We haven't got that far in the discussion yet. We are planning on social distancing as of right now with the CDC guidelines of 1 to a seat, every other seat. That may very likely change because I don't think the campus administration understands how very different capacities are at that recommendation. And everything that comes up every day, just like Mr. West said, is subject to change from day to day.
Sure.
But that's where we're at right now. And Jason, I know you saw the dividers, the guards that we were looking at between the seats. So where we're at right now is trying to get the FMVSS and NHTSA schematics for the materials we're using.
Mm-hmm.
We can present that to DPS. So we're still in that process.
Got it.
It doesn't look like that we'll even have all that information by the time school starts. So
sure,
it's probably something that we're going to have for a while. But that's
cool. I was going to circle back to that in item number 5. We'll talk a little bit about shields, and you can maybe talk a little bit more about the process and how you guys came up with that. So we'll circle back around that. Doyle, you want to go next?
Yeah, we're still looking at processes and everything, how school starts, everything revolves around transportation. So we looked at an 84 passenger bus that could haul about 15 kids. We've looked at every other seat. We've looked at 2 to a seat. I'm totally against that, but I'm just a transportation guy. So there's still a lot of things that we're looking at. It changes route times. It changes the way that we would load. It changes loading back to front, getting children involved and buying into that. Do I pick up K3? Who do I leave at the curb? There's a lot of things that we're working on right now. Well, we're trying to get some sort of response from the community, but our community is only about 5.5 square miles, which actually includes Terminal 4. But we speak 17 languages, and so it's one of those things where it takes a while to get things around. As far as I'm concerned, this is the middle of July. Which means that the teachers will be coming back. And so, yeah, there's a lot to do. There's a lot to do, and trying to figure out what's right, and then what's plan B, what's plan C, there's a lot of things we're working on right now.
Sure. Well, it sounds like most of us are pretty much all in very much the same boat, and I think most plans are starting to get in front of governing boards. I know Kyrene's first look was last week, and we're expecting our board to vote this coming Tuesday on basically the plan that I think that everybody's going to go for, which is the 3 options. Parents will have an option to put their kids in school full time. They'll have a modified learning to where they'll start off at home and then be able to come back to campus probably after the first quarter is over. And then the Kyrene Digital Academy is what they're calling it, and that's going to be the online learning piece. So, I think we're all, like I said, we're all kind of in the same boat, and I think once that decision gets made, then kind of all of our plans are going to fall pretty much in line with how do we go figure out what our expectations are going to be for, our staff and students. And, I think some of the things that I'm just concerned about in general, now that cities are kind of mandating masks, it seems that takes that out of the hands of the school, each school to require it or make it a recommendation. And I have that in our next series of questions that will be coming up. So we talk a little bit about that in just a few minutes. But, there's just so much going on, and it seems like it changes every week. It's going to be very hard to probably keep up with from week to week. But so I appreciate you guys all sharing. We can go ahead and switch into questions. So I captured some of the questions that have come in. Is Sam? Yeah, Sam, I see you had this question, so I don't know if you want to go ahead and take this and see if you want to share what Tempe Union's doing, because I know they just made their announcement, and then you guys can kind of talk about what your plans are for food, and we can throw that question around out there.
Yeah, sure. Appreciate that. Yeah, so our governing board, the plan was unveiled to them on Wednesday, and we're taking, seems like a little bit different approach. They wanted they did survey the community and our employees, and about 65% came back that they wanted something flexible and, giving options, and a lot of them wanted alternative schedules. So part-time on campus and part-time off. So currently with a 1 day where we would have no class, and then the remaining 4 days there would be class, and we would divide up the population by 25% each day. So students only going 1 week, which really helps our transportation as far as going to the 1 student per seat. So helps us with that equation. But we can, as things progress or decline, that flexible schedule can be implemented, and we can change it quickly to 2 days a week and expand there. We are going to require masks. Bell schedules are staying the same. At this time, we will be doing 10 checks. That hasn't been fully vetted yet. And then for special ed, I think we're going to split them into a morning and afternoon session. And depending on their level of disability, like the most needy students would go daily for the 3.5 hours, and either morning or afternoon, and then the moderate would go twice a week. And then to your question on as far as lunches, I was just throwing that question out. Has anyone heard anything that lunch deliveries would be required on days when students are not in classroom? So those online students, that you're still required to meet the USDA requirements for the reduced and free lunch programs.
Nobody? I think Tempe, I was going to say, I think Tempe Union is one of the only districts that's really planning to go with like a, students one day per week, right? So however you guys split that up, I don't know that, anybody really has that kind of information, but I mean, go ahead, Shannon, do you have something?
Yeah, I just think that if you have your campus open, in my experience in food service, that then families would be able to come and pick it up at the location, but I'm not sure a delivery would be coupled with an open campus.
Okay.
just like based on like normal like law or statute, but everything's different right now. So
Yeah, there's probably some USDA requirements as far as that goes.
Correct. We were told if parents do distance learning and that's what they sign up for and they're going to do the online academy or whatever we're going to call it, we wouldn't be able to provide the lunches for them. USDA wouldn't allow that. Yeah.
It does make sense since they obviously have, options out there for education.
well, and for breakfast and lunch, as long as it's being served on campus, they can probably still go there to eat or get their meals. I'm not sure.
Kind of seems counterproductive at that point if you're choosing to keep your kid at home. You still have to go to a site to get food. So
Right.
Is everyone extended their summer food program past June 30th? Gotten the approval? We've gotten approval through July 10th, and that's it. But anyone going the rest of summer?
we haven't looked at. I think what our district is planning to do is that if the extension or we get the approval that they're going to move to a on-site feeding program and just do that instead of the deliveries that we've been doing.
Yeah.
I believe I understood from our food service that the USDA waiver is through the end of August. So we're going to continue as long as school is out.
Nice.
Alhambra is going to do summer food program through August 3rd.
Nice.
Are you delivering, Vanessa, or are they coming to a school?
Both. We have ground kitchens and mobile kitchens.
Oh, got it.
And we're only serving on Tuesdays. So the kitchens do the meal prep Monday, and then Tuesdays we do the distribution. And we're doing about 40 to 43,000 meals on those Tuesdays.
So you handing out 5 days worth of meals on that, or 4 days worth of meals?
We're doing 5 days.
Got it.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing distribution 3 days, and on those same 3 days, we're also doing delivery. So there's grab and go from the schools, plus we're doing delivery to locations where they might not be able to get to the school. And then we are feeding for 7 days.
Wow. That's interesting. So is the district being reimbursed for those 2 days? Or are you guys just paying it?
It's through whichever the program is. I can't tell you for sure that we're being reimbursed any differently, but the USDA is allowing the 7 days.
Got it.
So that's what we're distributing.
Huh. Brian, you had something?
Yeah, Phoenix Union doing the same. So we're on for summer 4-day schedule, and on Thursdays we send out the food for 4 days: Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. In July, I believe we're going to go just to feeding on sites and suspending delivery.
Got it. All right, we'll skip down to the next question. Ernie, are you still on here? I think this was Ernie's question about staff lounges and what we're doing about staff lounges.
Yeah, I'm here. The reason I asked that question because my upper administration is telling us that we can't have more than 10 people in a room. We can't even have an in-service with those type of guidelines, or let staff inside the lounge. So I'm just wondering if any of you are being faced with the same challenges.
Litchfield we're going to do a virtual welcome back, Ernie, through Zoom with all of my staff, but my guys are pretty used to Zoom because we did it 3 to 4 days a week during the shutdown, so they're all comfortable with that. But for the lounge, I've got 4 tables with 5 chairs at each one. I was told I got to take all the chairs out but one person per table for that 6-foot distancing. If 4 people are in there, someone can come in to get their stuff, but they have to leave immediately. So that's what I'm going to be doing, limiting it down to 4 people at a time sitting in there, which is a very low number compared to the 100 I have in my department. So.
Right. And we have to obviously remove seating and space tables and even computer workstations accordingly. But I'm under the impression that if staff are wearing masks, right? Then more than one person can sit at that table, if you will. It's if they don't have a mask, then you can only have, right, the 3 or 4 in there. Is that how you understood it, Jason?
That's how I understood it. I think they'll still be discouraged from hanging out for long periods of time, but I'm sure just like all of us in here, we probably have staff members that typically don't have a place to go in the middle of the day because of where they live and how, their drive back and forth. So we'll just have to get creative with that. I think we're still planning for an on-site in-service. We're going to try and do it in 3 days and do, we can split our staff in about 35 people per group. And then if we use just our boardroom, we think that we can socially distance everybody by about, the appropriate distances to get everybody into that room, do their welcome back, and then give them 2 days to go drive their routes. And, since they're going to have, 21, 22 weeks of, not driving a bus. So I think the most opportunity that we can give them to make our trainers available and even the supervisors available to giving that extra aid to our staff members that want it, especially because we probably have, a quarter of our staff are, less than or been with the district less than a year. So just that renewing and refreshing on all of their skill set that they learned, and then we went into this, long duration where they're not driving a school bus. So that to us is going to be the most important piece, I think, is just getting them ready for their routes and really understanding what the expectations are going to be for sanitation and, wearing masks and making sure that they feel comfortable directing students around. We're going to have to figure that out. And I think, both Brian and Sam, and actually Sam shared a link that I'll share a little bit later, in an article that was about seat spacing and getting everybody. I think for us, we're just gonna, siblings sit with each other, and then, maybe try and load front to or back to front and front to back as we're kind of coming and going. I don't know how that's going to look for required seating charts, if you will. So we may have to be a little bit flexible on that this year, but those are just some of the things. I know that Shannon was working with our print shop to have floor stickers made that say, the 6-foot reminder that we'll put all over our floors and whatnot. So I don't know if anybody else is. Yeah.
Visible targets for people.
Hey, Ernie, have you looked at maybe using one of your auditoriums at your high school for your welcome back meeting? Because you can social distance, possibly in a situation like that, or physical distancing situation where it has more room. We're looking at that, and then we're also looking at doing it at 3 different separate times during our kickback day, our day we come back and stuff like that. And then, like Jason says, give them a couple of days to drive their routes and refresh their skills and stuff like that. But the auditorium might be a situation where, depending on the size of your staff, you could physical distance and have everybody in one room in that scenario there possibly.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I never thought about that. We certainly have the auditoriums. I have 200 staff members. We talked about spreading it out through a couple of days. The challenge I have is they only give me 1 day for in-service. So I would have to go, I would have to ask for additional days.
There's additional days written into the CARES Act in order to prepare staff. So you might ask about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one thing that our district had said, that teachers were going to get an extra time to be able to prepare all of this stuff. So that was one of our asks, was that can we get we get 2 days. I think Armando gets like 2 weeks. So something silly like that. Yeah, basically. So I know that, we're just trying to figure, if we figured we run our district in 3 regions, so if we could have each region come in and be able to separate everybody. My biggest thing about the virtual piece, like what Tommy's doing, is just it needs to be how do you make it a requirement, make sure that everybody's connecting, because like most of us, we have some staff that don't have computers, they don't know how to use barely use the cell phone. So how do we get them to connect to and ensure that the information that we have to share with them is going to be able to get out there and be provided to them, without having a way to roll call or connectivity issues or whatever. So I think it's just that much more important to say, regardless of the social distancing piece and that requirement, if we put masks on and we find a room that's big enough, there's a reason why we have to bring everybody here, and there's a lot that we have to cover to make sure that we're ready to go for the first day of school. All right. I don't know. Is Eric Kissel in here? I haven't seen him.
No, he wasn't going to make it. I talked to him earlier.
All right. Well, we can just discuss it, and he can watch this in video later. Who's planning to increase staff headcount for anticipated increase in daily absences? Has anybody asked for, more positional headcount or anything to that, to that nature to plan to go above and beyond your FTE or your allotted department's FTE to plan for an increase in absences from staff?
I think right, we would all like to do that, but my goodness, getting applicants for our current vacancies is certainly a challenge. We would all agree.
Well, I think Ernie's fully staffed, right?
Yeah, right.
It's hard enough keeping up with the positions we have, just like
Absolutely.
Shannon.
Say, if Ernie's fully staffed, I'm reaching through the screen right now.
I've hired 5 this summer and I've lost 7.
Wow.
We're running into the issue of we want to offer the position to them, but they're nervous to take the position to quit their other job just in case we don't start school, if they're going to get paid or not. Now they're out completely. So that's the issue we're running into.
Yeah.
Well, and you have your unknowns with your
Alhambra's
current.
looking at. Go ahead, Shannon.
Oh, just saying with your current folks who are, also a little bit leery, but they still hold the vacancy, so you can't really fill the gap until they make a decision also.
Yep.
Yeah. Alhambra is exploring hiring bus assistants for all the general ed buses, but it goes back to the same challenge all transportation departments have, is filling the vacancies. So we're exploring it, but then there's the challenge of filling them.
Well, and I would think that, the monitor piece seems a little bit more easy to fill just because of the lesser requirements of all the certifications that a bus driver has to have and the responsibility of driving a big vehicle like that. That's just, I would think that even if you were finding kids from community ed or something like that, or somehow some partnership with community ed that you could say, hey, in the, take their morning staff, if they have morning staff only, and give them an opportunity to work in the afternoon and vice versa. So that way they're already certified district employees, right? That you could maybe use something like that just to help that. I was having an interesting conversation with my mom actually yesterday about that. Was just, are they going to be hiring monitors to require, who's going to be watching to make sure masks are being worn properly, right? And I think that's for all of us. When you start to think about how the school's going to come back together, parents are going to be calling and upset because little Susie saw Johnny not wearing his mask, and they're going to want to know how to work around that and want bus video pulled, and there's just going to be a lot of things that we're not going to have time for. So.
Yeah, and that's the purpose of having a monitor or a bus assistant on the general ed buses, is to help with student management, and then with screening students and making sure they're wearing their masks, and then helping at the bus stops. And then we do have 10 sub-bus positions, 10 sub-bus driver positions, but again, it's filling them.
Yeah, same with Kyrene has 9. Go ahead, Brendan.
The problem with putting monitors on general ed buses for the purpose of, mask management is you'll never get them off of those buses. So you're going to end up having to have monitors on general ed buses for behavior purposes. Yeah. And that's a slippery slope. I don't know who could staff that. in the future.
Well, I think it kind of goes back to seatbelts, right? We tell them that they need to wear seatbelts because seatbelts are on the bus. I think at that point we've done our due diligence and said, we've instructed them how to wear them properly, when to wear them, when not, et cetera. That's going to be basically, as far as I'm concerned, the same thing with the masks. We're going to do everything that we can. We're going to provide them to wear it if they wear it incorrectly, if it comes off because they're, think about the kids that are just going to have anxiety from having something of that close to their face and start going into a panic attack. We're just going to have to work through those details on what that looks like, and just leave that as a driver managed behavior and not to mention just the labor costs in general, just to have, for some of us that have 100, Ernie, how many routes do you have? 150 routes? So if you got 150 routes, you've got, 150 monitors that you're going to put on a bus. That's big dollars right there that you're talking about, even at just minimum wage. We're going to bankrupt some of these school districts just from some of these thoughts. So.
Well, and the fact that, they're projecting 20 to 30% less enrollment because everyone's going to go to homeschool or some online format if a school's not offering it, that's going to be a cut in our M&O money as well that we're not going to have to put out. Are there going to be regular positions that we have right now that are going to have to be cut because of it? That's another fear of that.
And that's what I was saying. So over time, the CARES Act already isn't funding the needs of the response to the pandemic.
The one thing that I've done with our administration at the schools is I've told them that if we have, I don't want to put our drivers as the mask police on the bus, and I will not put them in that position.
Right.
It's not our job or the driver's job to administrate discipline because they're not wearing their mask correctly or they're messing around. We'll just write it up as a referral and give it to the administrator. The administrator can deal with the student and the parent. That's something we've already had the discussion with our principals. They have already taken that responsibility. Because in my opinion, if you do that to a driver, they're going to get frustrated. They're going to walk.
Yeah,
or they're
sure.
I'm not doing this route anymore. I want to switch to a different route, and it's going to complicate problems. But
it also goes back to having that school site support. Every school seems to have their own way that they deal with discipline, and so if from the top down, a district's going to say it is a requirement, no ands, ifs, or buts about it. There needs to be that hard line in the sand that says if the mask is not being worn, the student's being written up and it's a suspension or whatever, right? They can't have this loosey-goosey, in-school suspension or in-school, other school consequences, and this kid still gets to ride the bus and not wear the mask. So go ahead.
The other thing that's going to help us, I think, I don't want to call it help, but the other thing that will support that is if the city requires it, then it's really not the district saying it. Say, hey, this is what the district is told that has to happen in Phoenix or Scottsdale or wherever your schools are at. We have schools in 3 different cities, but we have to follow that law or that governed by that, by the city governance in that situation, not the district. And maybe that helps this parent be more responsible to their students in that situation. It's not the school doing it, it's the city requiring it, and we are kind of the middleman out of the way of that picture a little bit.
Got it. So my second question to Eric's question, or my question to Eric's question is, those of you, have you already identified staff that are going to be requesting some type of leave or have said, I'm not comfortable returning back to work? And, for how long? That means now that you are staffed, but you have several people that aren't returning back to work, and how, has anybody talked about that with their administration on what does that look like and how long the position will be held for, seemingly just putting you into a shortage of trying to figure out how to cover the day-to-day operations. Anybody want to talk to that?
Yeah, James, we have a meeting on schedule for Monday to discuss exactly that, because the CARES Act, as you all know, expires June 30th, and we don't know if they're going to implement a new one or not. So they're going to give us some advice on how to handle that coming July 1.
Got it.
So that's where we're at with that.
Anybody else?
Yeah, our HR department put out a document, I think it was Wednesday, that talked about any employees who have a request of not filling their position or a situation revolves around the COVID situation. They are to have a one-on-one with HR, taking me or us out of the situation and letting the employee know what their rights are and what their abilities are in this decision, their job position, how long it could be, what's their justification or reasoning behind it. So it's a one-on-one with HR. It doesn't mean it's going to be any easier or any better, but the district has already said any employee who has a concern or has a reasoning, they are to contact HR directly for a one-on-one.
Got it. So then my other question that I just put up for conversation, now that cities are, obviously mandating masks, what are your, last week we were talking about it was just going to be a requirement or a recommendation. So maybe I'll put Josh on the spot if he's still in here. Josh, you want to talk about what Higley is going to be doing as far as, I don't know, is Gilbert, I assume they're going to be making a recommendation to require masks. What are you guys going to be?
The town council in Gilbert votes today.
So do you, or both Trace and Josh, if you guys want to talk to how you're going to be, or just going to make that requirement pretty easy, said and done.
I'm going to watch Josh because he starts school first.
And like other districts, we have Queen Creek, Gilbert, and Mesa is comprised of ours. And right now, Queen Creek has said no, masks are not required. So we have 2 schools in Queen Creek and a bunch in Gilbert. So I think our district's still going to probably have to go. If Gilbert says masks, that we'll just have to do it district-wide. Otherwise, stop the bus at Power Road and tell everyone to put their masks on when we enter the city of Gilbert. So.
We have 6 municipalities in our district, and right now 3 have mandated it, 2 are talking about it, and 1 is absolutely refusing. So I have a feeling our district admin is going to just make it easy and say we're going to require it. I think that's going to be from last week.
That's what I'm thinking as well. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's some pretty good discussion there on the questions that we received. Also, just so you guys know, I did put up that survey just for questions, just a place to drop questions. So if you're having questions pop up, feel free to put them there so we can have something to talk about next week. Or just as the questions come up and you work through them, maybe we can just ask that question and then you can talk to that also about how you're handling that question. So just gives another good place to have some good discussion. So I wanted to just kind of switch gears into updating on sanitation protocols. So Brian here, maybe if you want to talk a little bit how you guys came up with your onboard shield prototype and what the thoughts were behind that and who you've been working with. Do you want to share?
Yeah, sure. It actually started as a joke. We were talking about social distancing and the partitions that they were putting on the municipal buses for the drivers. And we just kind of started with a joke. I'm like, well, why couldn't we do that on the buses? Well, using the plexiglass, of course, there's a lot of problems with that. For one, you can't compromise the integrity of the seat. So it's not like you can bolt the plexiglass to each seat. So we were thinking about clamps or something to hold them on. But in that situation, if there's an accident or rollover, you've got a bunch of plexiglass laying all over the place, blocking exits. And so somebody just kind of mentioned, why not shower curtains? And we had a laugh, and then we, wait a second, let's think about that for a minute. And so what we ended up doing is going to automotive supply and getting a heavy vinyl, a heavy clear plastic vinyl, and figured out a way to hang them without compromising the integrity of any part of the bus by using magnet hooks and hanging the plastic vinyl from the ceiling without using any screws or anything that puts any holes or anything. So that's where we're at right now. Have to get specifications, fire rating specifications, and the ratings for the, yeah, there you go. The plastics and the materials that we're using to find out if it complies with FM, VSS, and NHTSA standards. Once we have that, then we can go back to DPS and have it inspected to see if this is a viable option.
So is it like secured? I mean, is it secured or does it swing, or how does it, I mean, how did you guys, is it just basically hanging from the ceiling?
Those, yeah, they're the way you see them there, they're just hanging, but so they're behind the seat, and just so they're secured and not moving, we would tape them to the back of the seats, the bottom, so they don't swing and move around.
So this is being done current, or something like this you've seen on city transit?
No, just around the driver. They're using
Oh,
plexiglass
gotcha. I
to
think I
separate
had,
the driver from, yeah.
Are these on buses that have the lower seat backs, not the new seat height requirement? Or are these ones with the new buses with the like the higher seats?
Both. We just done this one bus as a prototype.
there's the driver's area.
I've had DPS write us up for drivers that had magnets of like picture frame magnets around their driver's area, and I don't know if those magnet clips are something DPS would approve or not. I would just be curious about that. But
Yeah, when we spoke to Sergeant Larson, he didn't mention anything about the magnets. He was more concerned about the ratings on the materials, but that doesn't mean that they wouldn't notice that when they did the inspection.
right, yeah.
And I think it, at least from some of the conversations that I've already had with DPS, it seems like they're, where they've always kind of had this very definitive, line or putting things in the miscellaneous categories. It sounds like they're at least willing to hear some of the, ideas and the options out there, and being a little bit more willing, just because they're, people are trying to figure out how to put something on there, right? And so, I don't think that Richard Moore's in here, but he shared some other information of another company that was that also has a barrier type product. And maybe Armando, if you want to talk about what was American Safety Solutions or whoever they are.
John Koch, he's the guy that is selling the extended stop arms that we're piloting. Anyway, he sent me an email saying that he's come up with I guess his company's come up with plexiglass shields that go between the seats to help protect the students and everything. And he didn't send any pictures, but I just sent him back stating that, are they FMVSS certified? You have to have, who's going to take the liability? Are the bus manufacturers going to assist in becoming liable for these changes and things like that? So he hasn't answered me back on any of that, but I'm sure they probably didn't think of any of that when they were doing it.
I feel like it increases the time that you need for sanitation, either between tiers or in the middle of the day when now you're cleaning, right, those dividers.
The other thing is, what about the airflow for the air conditioning? I know everybody has different types of AC on their buses and things like that. And as hot as the buses are still inside, even with AC, you're going to have a lot of complaints from the parents. If my kids are hot, they're coming home red-faced. Who knows?
Sure.
A lot of different things you got to think about.
Armando, yeah, that's the reason we hung them down from the ceiling.
Yeah.
When we had them all the way to the top, there was just no airflow through the bus, especially buses with the free blow.
Yeah.
So we hung them down, and we got that airflow moving through there. It's still not ideal, but a lot better than.
And even the driver's area, because a lot of buses don't have dash air yet. How are you going to get the airflow flowing in there if you don't have that taken care of up in the front of the bus?
Brian, how do you think your students are going to respond to that should you move forward as it relates to just a bus management component?
It's pretty interesting. We do have issues with students grabbing things, pulling. So I think we'd probably have issues there. And that's why we were talking earlier about personnel. I requested an increase in personnel to have monitors on all the buses, but still, that's an increase of 25 monitors and at another $350,000 a year. So it's going to be a tough sell.
Interesting.
So Richard Moore over at Dysart had shared this Davy Coach bus driver and passenger protective shields. So I linked this. I did link this one up on the website, but this is something a little bit more. You can see kind of what their design, I guess, is, so to speak. I can scroll down a little bit further. You can see this barrier. So it looks like, at least, I don't know that this is a school bus. It doesn't look like a school bus. And I'm not exactly sure, but I think he was also talking about this nanoside grab rail. So something that goes over the handrails that could easily be, replaced, that would help prevent, I guess it's like they're touching it, and so it already has some sort of hand sanitizer or sanitizing something built into it. So for those that want to look into it, if it's linked up on the website if you guys want to know more about this company.
Hey, Brian, is administration pushing that issue with the driver shield? Is it coming from you? Where's that coming from on your district?
It was coming from us. I was looking for a way to be able to have more students on the bus, and we were looking to try and get one student to a seat instead of one student every other seat.
Got it.
Go ahead. I'm not sure if it was this Davies Coach, but there's a couple companies out now that are making these dividers, and that's where we started. We reached out to the company, and they're just for municipal buses. They're not approved for school buses.
Yeah, and I think even if from what it sounds like, at least in the letter that came out from DPS a couple weeks ago, made it sound like even if they want to see a manufacturer sign off on it first and have it all, all the details before they're going to sign off on it. And from what I've gathered from just talking with some of our local vendors, they're hearing from, their the big corporate side that, it doesn't sound like a lot of them are very interested in trying to figure out how to do some type of barrier, whether that's just maybe time and, or what do they call it? D&D or R&D, the methodology behind there to design and then go to the fire rating and crash testing everything to make sure that, when they realize that maybe 90% of bus transportation providers across the country aren't going to be able to even afford something, even if it did come to market, right? So just doesn't seem like a whole lot of districts are going to be able to even bite that off if it was even available.
I hate to say it. I think it's a great idea. It's innovative, but kind of like what Jason is saying, I'm hopeful that we are that we're relatively on the same page in terms of what we're doing. Of course, that was the purpose of this conversation. But I'm hopeful that we'll come out of this with a recommendation that's pretty good, that's going to be pretty similar across district line.
I've been trying to communicate the same thing.
So, I mean, although I think it's it's an innovative idea and it's great, and I would like, the drivers to be, obviously extra protected, et cetera. I can't go there myself. And I just would hate to have somebody point and say, hey, well, they're doing it, why not you?
One of the things that weighs heavy on my mind every day is, first of all, I commend all of you on your innovative ideas. I mean, everybody has a great solution in mind. But what worries me is our board members, our governing board members, they all speak to each other and they go, well, my district is doing this, my district is doing this. And we're going to have our plan and we're going to submit it to the governing board for approval. And they're going to say, well, why aren't you doing what ABC school district is doing? Why can't we do that here? So then we have to start all over from the beginning. I don't think that'll happen, but it's very possible. I don't even have a feel yet of what our governing board is thinking or wanting. I think Deer Valley is watching what